Beauty and wellness trends are a common sight on social media. Something that you might have noticed popping up a lot are so-called cortisol remedies.
I think this is really interesting, not something I knew much about. Cortisol is a stress hormone. It's essential.
And posts online frequently claim to have solutions to tackle feelings of burnout and high stress by reducing cortisol levels. But now experts are worried that people are turning to these trends instead of addressing underlying problems. Let's have a look at the sorts of posts on social media that people are seeing.
You keep seeing them videos on TikTok where they're like, oh, you're not fat, your cortisol levels are just high.
This is the cortisol cocktail that I drink every single morning. I was struggling severely with anxious thoughts.
Bet you didn't know that these are the things elevating cortisol and stopping you losing weight. Number one is that you ignore your circadian health by staying inside all day, ignoring meal times and going to bed late.
I lived in fight or flight for years of my life without even realising. So here are all of the signs and symptoms that I ignored but were actually high cortisol.
There are 5 signs that you have way too much cortisol, your stress hormone. 1, you also have chronic back pains and headaches. 2, you don't sleep well at all. You're tired throughout the entire day, but when you should go to bed and your head hits the pillow, you're wide awake again.
Top tips to get out of fight or flight and lower your cortisol levels. The signs or symptoms that you could be in fight or flight or have high cortisol. The 3 categories of things I'm going to talk about are supplements, lifestyle type practices, and then nutrition.
We've got a couple of guests to talk about this here in the studio, Jasleen Carroll and Dr. Anis Mukherjee, who is an expert in these things. But Jasleen, you're here because you've got experience of this. Just explain, if you would, what symptoms you had and how cortisol affected you.
Yeah, so my high cortisol levels presented in a very physical form. So I had immense joint pains, probably because of lack of sleep. I also have autoimmune conditions. It presented with rashes, inflammation everywhere. So yeah, it was a difficult time when it was very high.
So the temptation is to look on social media, buy something over the internet to fix whatever you've self-diagnosed as being wrong, but actually you need to get to the root of it, don't you?
Well, this is just it. I was trying absolutely everything to fix these symptoms. So cortisol cocktails, ashwagandha tablets, you name it, I have tried it. And I found I wasn't tackling the root cause of my issues. I was very much focusing on the symptoms, which I think a lot of people do, because you just think I'm in pain or I'm not sleeping or, you know, I feel very stressed out. Let me take something to calm me down. And it doesn't work because you're not focusing on what's making you stressed out.
And what worked in the end for you then?
So I did a lot of therapy around what was causing my stress. And as soon as I started focusing on the cause of that, all of the symptoms started to die down.
That is amazing, isn't it? That is your body responding to talking therapy, presumably, in such a literal way. And is that quite typical then? What's causing this cortisol to run through some systems at much higher rates than others?
Well, I mean, what Jasleen is sort of describing is the impact of unrelenting stress, which does cause your cortisol to rise, but it's more of a dysregulation. So it's not that the cortisol is excessively high all of the time or excessively low all of the time, but it's not responding as it should. We're hardwired to respond to threats that our ancestors survived. So we survive well when our cortisol is responding well to, you know, war, you know, emergencies. But when stress becomes unrelenting, which is common in today's world, and we've got stress, you know, on our phones, shouting out at us, we're very connected with the world, and stress becomes chronic, and that becomes very toxic to our body. Cortisol can't cope with this type of stress, the cortisol response. The cortisol follows body clocks. It goes high when we need it to be high, and it's very low at night when we're resting and sleeping. When the cortisol goes out of whack, because there's so much going on in the background, you know, your cortisol is low and it should be high, so you can wake up feeling exhausted and foggy. It can be too high at night, so you're exhausted, but you're wired and can't sleep. So it's dysregulated.
Cortisol can be a friend, can't it? If you are in a pressured situation, it can give you that extra oomph. Yeah. So how do you get, you know, we think working in broadcasting, sometimes we are releasing those stress hormones. How do you reach that balance between using it as an ally but not overdoing it?
Well, it's absolutely different for everybody. Cortisol is, as you say, it's essential for life, for all of us. We can't survive without it at any age. And it's meant to help us. And when it works well for us, the stress response helps us perform better in emergency situations, in situations where we need to be on our game. But when it stops working, it's the entire opposite. It's like a malfunction. So the thing is, it's very difficult to do testing for chronic stress. We test for when hormones are excessively high due to things like tumours, or very low due to hormone glands not working at all. This is different. And the medical profession are behind, because the types of stress that we're all experiencing now, today, is different even from 30 years ago.
And some of the things that Jasleen talked about, it must be very difficult to hone in and say, you've got a problem with your cortisone balance, because actually it could be any one of a number of different conditions that your cortisol, sorry, I said cortisol.
Yeah, and modern healthcare will tell you, we'll do these tests, and often people are told the tests are normal. In your case, your cortisol was found to be very high. But actually, if you test the cortisol 50 different times, you'll get 50 different levels. So it's very difficult to test. Doctors are good at finding a clear-cut abnormality and treating it. Chronic stress isn't a nice, simple problem. It's very complex.
Just stress that causes it?
And it's very, very individual. So, one person's stress might be somebody else's. Somebody else might thrive on the same thing. So the solution, just going back to what you said, will actually be different for everyone, but you have to look at the root cause, not the symptom of the cortisol's rising as a response to the problem. You need to look at the causes, and they are different in everybody who is experiencing stress-related problems.
And Jasleen, finally, I mean, do you have any tips for someone? Because sometimes I can feel the adrenaline starting. I think, right, we just take 10 deep breaths. So it's just simple moves like that just kind of keeps a lid on it. What do you recommend? Because you've come out the other side of this.
Absolutely deep breathing, like you mentioned, and find moments. And I used to hear this so often and dismiss it, but really find moments to be present. Not focus on anything but the activity that you're choosing to do.
It's so much harder than it sounds, isn't it?
Whether it's cooking a meal with whatever's in your fridge because you're just focusing on, well, what can I make for dinner tonight? Breath work, think about what I can feel and the cold and things like that. So just really taking moments to be present, I think is really important. Absolutely, because I didn't believe any of this would work. I thought I needed to take tablets or something.
And you tried all of that, and it didn't.
No, it didn't.
Thank you very much for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Jasleen Carroll and Dr. Anis Mukherjee, thank you both very much indeed.